Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So we're back to school, and I thought it would be really interesting to check in with Lucy Colangelo, who has launched a program called ShineOn, which is a method to help young people access their potential through the power of self-activation. Lucy Colangelo is a former communications expert, now turned a student success coach. She helps students handle the pressures of life as they aspire to reach their goals. This ShineOn method of self-activation, the power of self-activation, offers practical solutions that support anyone interested in learning the skills they need in today's fast-paced, changing world. What a great topic for the beginning of the school year. Lucy Colangelo, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So tell me, what is this ShineOn method?
Okay, so I came up with it just a few years ago when I started to see that there's certain things that are missing in our conversations with young people. And it actually took me back to my childhood, my early teen years, where I was blessed to be really supported in that area. And I thought, wow, you know what? The more things change, the more they stay the same. There's these core things that we need to be reinforcing, and I'm not seeing it. So I decided to take action and get into the conversation and hopefully help people kind of see the bigger picture and expand their focus, like make it a little bit broader and bigger so that they can see, okay, why is this happening? What's actually going on? And, make a deeper connection with their young people, with their students, and help them thrive.
So is this a program for parents or for teachers or for the students?
It's all of that. It's something that I would like to see change. The conversation needs to change, and we need to focus on these core elements. So ShineOn helps support young people. There's 3 areas: mindset, clarity, and action. And we get into that conversation.
Clarity, and action.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to go through each one of them later on. But so is this a video, a program, a test? You one-on-one coaching with someone on a couch? Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's an online course initially, and if there's a need for extra coaching, then I'm available for coaching.
And you said that you noticed that there was this need. Do you have kids in the school system yourself? How did you notice that there was this need?
Well, I think, I was reflecting, I have teenage kids now, but this started years ago. It was one of those things where, like my listening of the world, so to speak, I could see people, and I was hearing conversations. It was coming up all around me, how much struggle teenagers are in, students like high school age. It's a really rough time. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of mental health issues. There's, like seeing an article or hearing something on the news about the increased suicide rates, things like that. Like, I just couldn't ignore it. And my mind just kept going to that place of, why is this happening? What's going on? And I could just feel the pressure on young people to just know who they are, know what they're here to do, and just have it all figured out. And there's this pressure of knowing and having it all together. And, I'd hear kids say things like, I wish I had more going for me. And you could tell that the bar was set really low about their own opinion of themselves and what they knew about themselves. And, it's got to be really scary for parents. At that time, my kids were young. They were like under 10 years old. But now I'm a few years into this, and I'm seeing I this year have both my kids in high school. And nothing's changed. It's the same thing. There is this struggle. There's this struggle for identity and knowing yourself. And there's all kinds of conversation around that. And I feel like the focus is in the wrong place. It's a little bit misplaced. And so we could get into like why I think that's going on and all those things. But I know from my heart as a parent to any parent listening, like, we have this big desire. We see our children, we love them wholeheartedly. And all we want is to guide them to thrive in life as they enter adulthood. You know, we want them to love their life, love the world around them, engage with the world. And I'm seeing a lot of kids, a lot of parents are telling me their kids don't want to engage. There's all these challenges and pressures, and, you know, we need tools is what I'm saying, you know, like we need something to support them, and we need them into a bigger conversation with themselves.
So this is a online course that
Yes.
we'll take, and how do they find it? Is it on the web?
On my website,
what's
right
your
off my
website?
website. Yeah, ShineOnMethod.com.
ShineOnMethod.com. And
Yeah.
why do you think this need exists? And why is it sort of more needed today than maybe in the past? Or is it the same?
So I think there is more pressure today, and I can get into the reasons. I've been doing this a while, and I've summed it up into 3 parts why I think this is going on. And my focus has always been in communications. So I came from a marketing business communications background. So I want to share that I'm all about the conversation. What I'm talking about here is this is missing in conversation with your child. If there's an issue, I invite you to have these 3 kinds of conversations with your kids. This is the kind of thing that I'd like to frame up for parents.
Okay.
And for young people to be in this kind of conversation with their parents, their teachers, whoever their support system is, especially adults, because, you know, I think that they can relate and glean some great advice and knowledge and guidance from people that have kind of seen this come around a few times, you know. But the 3 areas that I go into, they're things that I've researched with leading experts. The first one is actually our view of our parenting and how we guide our young people through the pressures, especially teens. Our perspective on ourselves, like why did we become a parent? The leading expert that I turn to is Dr. Shafali, and she talks about it all the time. And she talks about this loss of connection. And when I look at it and I look at her work, I hear her talking about that there's this need to overcome our own childhood. There's a lot of parents that view parenting, their teenagers especially, as a do-over for their upbringing. So I'm here to challenge your position in how you view your relationship, how you relate to your child and what you talk about. And are you creating space to get to know your child? You know, so this loss of connection, we need more conversation. We need parents to be more curious about who their children are. And in order for them to do that, their focus needs to be more about, hey, who are you and who are you here to be in this world, as opposed to, you know what, I didn't really like what happened when I was growing up, so I'm going to do it right. I'm going to get it right. This is what I'm going to do for my child. And there's not a feedback conversation coming from the other side. Like the alignment isn't there from the teenager. And then there's also, when it comes to parenting, there's this loss of time. There's this pressure. We're on devices all the time and we're distracted. And I really would like people to think about how much actual eye contact do you have with your teenager and how much conversation and connection is actually happening. So creating that connection, showing your child you're curious about who they are, showing them that you're here to advocate for them and support them and guide them, but they're in the driver's seat, is really important. And there's a funny story I want to share with my father-in-law. When I was a new mother, our kids were really small. They're 2 years apart, and I don't even think they were in kindergarten yet. And he said something about how, oh no, you're done raising them by the time you're 10. And I remember just being like seized up in my body thinking, what, 10? I couldn't picture my 10-year-old son being like fit to survive out in the wild kind of thing. This is where my mind went. But when I look back and I think about what happens in teenage years, it is a transfer of power, let's say, right? Up until a certain age, and you can think and reflect on your parenting. What age are you starting to instill the skills of self-leadership, of autonomy, of responsibility, you know? And I see kids, they go through school and parents have this mindset, I think, that they're not an adult and they're not grown until they're done school and they're out in the workforce. And these days, you could be well into your 20s and not have developed the skills of that self-sufficiency and responsibility and all these things. So
Are
there's
we doing something wrong in today's society that people, that kids, that teenagers, that young adults aren't getting that autonomy until their late 20s or 30s?
I don't know. It's like a correlation with education and being in school. And then there's a lot of times we just feel like they're not ready. It's a mindset that I'm encountering.
But is this
Like they're just kids.
so? Is
They
this
don't know what
a
they're
unhealthy
doing.
mindset that we're too involved in our kids' lives? You know,
Oh,
we think
yes.
about this helicopter parenting and you know all this pressure that we're putting on kids to be successful. When I was a kid, it was go out and play.
Yes. Oh, yes. There's not this freedom, this autonomy, this discovery, exploration. Like there's a lot of articles that I have from the leading experts. There's many of them. Dr. Gray's another one. He talks about these things. I have blog posts about this on my website. So through ShineOnMethod.com, there are actual articles from Dr. Shafali, from Dr. Peter Gray. Like we're talking about what they need developmentally. And yeah, we're not there. It's really tough. Like my kids are teenagers and giving them that freedom to make choices, creating space for that takes time. It takes that connection. There's that nurturing and cultivating of that space where, okay, well, how are you going to handle this? And letting them lead. It's kind of like when they were little and you were trying to teach them how to read words on the page. They were never going to connect the consonants and vowels and make the right sound for the word if you said the word, you know, like, and we're sounding it out with them sometimes. And I feel like it's so funny when I look at it now, I see the same thing happening over and over again. It's like now they're teenagers, but you're deciding for them. You're telling them where to go. You're telling them how to run their day. You're telling them da, 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 and they don't have a voice. They're not seen and heard. And I'm here to advocate for them. Please create that space in your parenting role.
So number one is need more connection, more communication.
More connection, more communication, more eye contact, like truly get off the devices, create space for these conversations and create opportunities for exploration and like getting to know what's out there in the world, what's going on, you know, like we're not having those conversations and kids are a little clueless. Like, you know, it's not their fault. It's not the parents' fault either. Everybody's working, everybody's got their pressures. We're trying to balance everything. I'm here to say, like, please make some time for this. Make time for this kind of conversation. Yeah, so that's the first one, the parenting.
Okay, and we're going to take a break for some messages and come back with the second and third reason. Stay with us, everyone. Fascinating conversation about kids shining on and being successful in school and in youth and in life with Lucy Colangelo, the ShineOnMethod.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Lucy Colangelo. She runs a method, a website, a program for teens, for teachers, for parents called the ShineOn Method. And the website, Lucy, is ShineOnMethod.com?
That's right.
ShineOnMethod.com. And what it is it's to help everyone self-actualize and be better students and I guess be better parents and teachers. And Lucy, you said the first reason why you thought there was a need for this was because we needed more communication, more connection with our kids. What are the second reason and third reason?
Okay, so we're talking about all this pressure around us and parenting. There's so much pressure on parents to get it right. That was the number one reason. The second reason is our perspective on the education system. What our expectations are of the education system, what the results will be of getting our kids through. And there's this interesting place that I found this comment. I was listening to an interview with Dr. Brene Brown, who's world renowned in her work, and she was being interviewed by Tim Ferriss. And at one point, the conversation got into her own parenting of her teenager. And her teenager was feeding back to her the pressure she was feeling to know where she was going to go to school, know what career she was going to pursue, just know who she was going to be in the world, full stop, 16 years old kind of thing. That was the kind of pressure. And her mom just said, Dr. Brene Brown says to her daughter, no, it's not going to work like that. We don't participate in the race to nowhere. The race to nowhere was something that just landed really hard for me. And it was something that unlocked and opened up this entire arena, let's say, of really what is the education system for? Why are we pushing it as the number one most important thing that is going to cause the success for our students, like in life? That's the only way to make it in life.
Oh,
Is to
doesn't
go.
statistic after, all the statistics say that with a little bit more education, you get a lot more income. You do better in life. Every different
That
degree, you have a stronger, more powerful opportunity in the world. No?
you definitely have a stronger, bigger opportunity in the world, but also when you zoom out a little bit more, and when you look at the people that are really making it in the world, many of them did not take that path. Many.
So you're saying forget education?
No, I'm saying alignment. It's misaligned. The emphasis is it's over exaggerated, and it's not coming into alignment with who our children are. It's not honoring that. If you sit and you say, if you don't go to university, like that's your aspiration, that's your goal, you have to go all the way. Otherwise, you're not going to make it in life. That's not exactly how that journey unfolds. And I'm saying stay in alignment with who the child is. We need to know who they are. And this is what Dr. Brene Brown is talking about, the race to nowhere. If there's a disconnection in who you are and you don't know yourself, you can end up very far along in an educational track that's not for you. And I've met those kids, and that's why I'm here to talk about it. It sounds very controversial that I'm saying, okay, the emphasis is not education. I know it sounds crazy. Of course, education unlocks and opens up entire worlds to people. But if they don't care about them, if there isn't passion, if there isn't curiosity, if there isn't this desire of understanding, hey, this is who I'm here to be, and this is what I'm going to make better in the world, it's a flat line. It's nothing. I've met kids who have graduated undergraduate programs, and they move home and they are not engaging in the world. They are not pursuing a career in that field. And I mean, I was just as shocked as anyone that's listening right now to think, oh my gosh, I could go and guide my child. Just think about it. You could guide your child through high school, through university. They could come out the other end educated and not care. And you've spent all this money in tuition, and you cannot get them to want to engage with the world and pursue something with it. And when I've met those kids, I have just been in shock. And they just like, well, mom and dad said this, so I went along with it. And I mean, I didn't have any ideas of my own, and I didn't know, so I just went along. And I mean, it's not everyone. I'm not saying it's everyone. I'm just saying if you want to really be sure, you really need to be connecting with your teen, with your student, and getting to know them and encouraging that in them. I mean, I've been in shock. I mean, it must be something to have your kid come home. There's got to be a lot of them out there, because I get messages all the time that no, they just don't care. They just don't care. They don't have the passion. They don't have the interest. It's not there.
But is that a continuation of this first problem that we were, too much a helicopter parent? We were trying to influence kids too much, such that, if kids wanted to take a gap year or travel around the world with a backpack or whatever, we're not letting them do that anymore. And, I think about, when I was growing up, we had grade 13 at the time. So we had an extra year in high school. And lots of people took gap years, and lots of people took time off after university to travel before such time as they started careers. And so, are we rushing kids into knowing what they need to be, knowing what they want to do in life and who they want to be before they're frankly ready?
I feel like it is a race. There's a lot of pressure there, and knowing it's like a race to know who you are. And that doesn't unlock and open up for every child at the same time. But the perception is, if you do that, you're the one that wins in society. And there's a lot of people that have made it, like truly, like immediately my mind goes to Steve Jobs. He went to college for one semester, and one of his classes was calligraphy, and he got bored. and he wanted to be out in the world doing stuff. And I mean, just think about the legacy he left behind and what he did for the world. There is an overemphasis on education, and there's almost no emphasis on experiences. And there's this other story that I have, this other student that I remember and having a conversation with a parent. She had this aspiration to be a veterinary doctor. She got into vet school, and first semester vet school, she learns about all the times that she has to, that it's a sad ending to the story of helping with animals. And it was heartbreaking, and she dropped out. She didn't actually have a clue of what life as a vet would be like day in and day out. And it was misaligned. And so then who is she? And she's already enrolled in a university program, and things are becoming clear. And that's the journey, that's the path. But the message is that's a failure. It's like, well, no, that's new information. And now we have to work with that, and we have to re-clarify. So that's what the ShineOn method is all about. And I'll get into that a little bit later when we cover the three most important reasons why I think we have the pressure in the first place. But my solution, I call it clarity mapping. And I talk about being in this active, participating kind of conversation with yourself about who you are and all the details, all the clues that you're collecting as you go through life. And
I'm a little bit past I'm a little bit past high school and university. I think I could use some clarity mapping too, though.
Right. Like, aren't you always in this conversation with yourself? Like, you're always redefining, clarifying for yourself who you are and what you want to do in the world and what you want to influence. A lot of kids get this message that this is like a set it and forget it. This gets decided in high school when you're applying to college or university, and you need to commit. And if you don't commit and if you don't know, you're a failure in some regard.
So
it's a lot. And so
it's completely untrue. And people's careers are changing so much during their lifetime today, from different occupations, different professions, different industries, whatnot, to different cities.
Absolutely.
That to think that at 20 something, you know exactly what you're going to do is, I think, a little bit naive and close to crazy. Okay. But you said there were three reasons. So reason number one why this is an issue is we need more connectiveness and communication with our young people. Number two is that we have this overemphasis on education, or this wrong emphasis on education. Is that correct? And what's number three?
Yeah, we need to bring the balance into education and experience, and getting to know ourselves in that education system. We need to be in that discovery conversation. And then the third one, you alluded to it, that yes, the pace of change in the world there's no stopping it. What our parents went through and the amount of change that happened in the world at their time when they were guiding us, there's no comparing what's happening today. How technology is advancing things. Entire careers and entire industries are being wiped out because somebody created an app. Like we are moving really fast, and people will get left behind if they don't have the skills to keep an open mind and recognize when change is happening. There is no set it and forget it. I think everybody knows this. There used to be a time where you went to school and you got your degree and you went off to work and you worked at that place and you retired at that place. And that was your career. That's what happened. Now people are changing jobs. The focus is different. Everything's changing, and we're not keeping up, and we're not even having the conversation that, hey, this is how it's just going to be. The need for reinvention won't be possible if you're not in inquiry, if you're not able to even recognize the change is happening and how it's affecting you and what your place in it could be. I mean, you're going to get left behind.
I think our universities or colleges and our own attitudes toward education have to change as well, because getting a 4-year degree in your 20s doesn't mean you're going to be set for life as far as the education you need to have. There's a lot of things that are going to change that you're going to need to learn over your lifetime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're going to have to keep learning, and you're going to have to keep getting better at things. And you're going to need that skill set. It is a skill set. That's what I'm saying in the ShineOn method. I feel that there's this gaping hole. There's this gap of, okay, you know how to learn when you're learning a subject, but do you know how to learn yourself, understand who you are when you operate at your best? What does it mean to be in alignment with what's going on so you can show up powerfully in the world and do something and contribute and earn and have a great life? It's still possible. I mean, I truly believe I'm like eternal optimist. I think the world is getting more connected and better every single day. I love it. I embrace technology. I embrace all the things, but I feel like it's a skill set. And I feel like it's a skill set that's not being developed effectively enough, quickly enough, early enough in life. And we're going to get left behind. This stuff is all informed by, I read the book Sapiens by Dr. Harari. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book.
Oh,
but he talks about,
excellent book.
Yeah. The history of mankind and where we're heading, and like talk about everything about AI and all the things that are currently in the world happening today with jobs being replaced because of technology. It is a monster to think about. It is scary to think about. And when we think about how we're guiding our young people, how we're parenting them, how we're directing them towards education, yes, they're going to always need to be learning. And I would say that education, school is everywhere. School is everywhere. It's not just in a classroom. And we need to be broadening and teaching people to have that open mind, know themselves so they can know how to come into alignment and find their way. Because what I'm seeing is a lot of people that are checking out. And even Dr. Brene Brown, in that interview with Tim Ferriss, she talks about people just, drinking and pacifying themselves on the weekends and just living for the weekends and just making it through the week. And that kind of attitude, we don't want that for our kids.
We don't want that. Yeah, no question. You want more than that. Well, we're going to have to take a break and come back and understand more about what actually this ShineOn method is. So you've told us about the 3 reasons why you think that the need for it has increased dramatically. And the first was the need for connectiveness and communication, really understanding your teen, your kid. The second is that you think there needs to be a balance between experience and education, and that maybe that balance doesn't exist today. There's too much of a stress on education, not enough stress on experience. And the third, which is obvious in so many parts of life, is that change is increasing. It's more rapid, and it's going to ever change for people in our current lifetimes, and for sure in our kids' lifetimes. But now we're going to turn to what actually the program is all about and how you help people. Okay, we're going to take a break and be back in 2 minutes with Lucy Colangelo. Stay with us, everybody. The ShineOn method. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Lucy Colangelo, who has a ShineOn method for young people and young people's parents and young people's teachers on how to self-actualize, to figure out what you want to do in life far better. Lucy, tell me a little bit about this ShineOn method, if you could, and what's part of it. You've talked about why we need it, but let's understand what it actually is, if we could.
Absolutely. Okay, so the setup here comes from actually my childhood. That's the background. I was a very curious young girl, and coming into my teenage years, I spent a lot of time in libraries, and I had really close connections with my teachers. And my parents were really great and supportive. I just want to say that, but they were not really clear on how to handle me because I was kind of a lot. I was so curious and I had a lot of questions. And so my teachers and my librarians, because back then there wasn't any Google. So if you had questions, you went to the library, you went to look at books and this type of thing. And I met some wonderful people. And I remember how much they helped me believe in myself. And they really encouraged and emphasized that if I was feeling that pressure, like I felt this enormous pressure to get it right. I truly believed that if I didn't get it right, I was going to be a failure. And I really took my life very seriously. I wanted to be successful. And I was a little bit overly dramatic, perhaps, about it. but I think that was on purpose. I think that was by design. It was meant to be that way. And I found these wonderful people, and they were just so encouraging about me being curious about who I am. And I remember this special moment in grade 8. Teachers put out this invitation to write the valedictory speech for our graduating class. And I went home and just something came over me. And I just remember all that encouragement from my librarians, from my teachers. They're saying, you have this gift, you can write, put something on paper. And I'd never given myself permission to go there. And I don't know why. I felt very insecure. I didn't think that I had a gift. And for some reason, I just took a chance and I decided to believe them. And I sat down and I wrote a speech. And I brought it to the teachers, and it made my teachers cry. They were very moved. And of course, I got to deliver the valedictory speech that year, along with a classmate who wrote a hilarious, like, comedic skit. So it was fantastic. We balanced each other out. But I got to get up there, and I remember it was the first time in my life that I was truly in alignment with who I was, what my gifts were, and I was sharing it with the world. And I feel like we need that. I think every young person needs to feel that encouragement, that support, to take a chance, to do the thing, to have the experience, take that action, and really start to find their way in a really meaningful and authentic way. And so I look back to that part in my life, and especially later on in my years, this came up about 5-6 years ago for me. I was like, what else is there for me? And I went back to who I was in grade 8 and what that energy was of those teachers and that enormous amount of support that I felt. And I thought, what are those elements? And I remember it was that mindset. They fed me this mindset of this belief in myself and this curiosity about who I am. And that led to the second thing in ShineOn, is that clarity piece, the mindset, clarity. I had to get clear about who I was. I had to be in discovery about that. And I had to take action. So mindset, clarity, and action are the 3 parts of the ShineOn method. And when I did that, I remember feeling this energy wash over me of like, this is what people need. They need to connect with themselves every single day. They need to activate. And that's how you turn that pressure into performance. That's how you find that success in life. That's when you're in alignment and everything's flowing.
Okay. So how do you get in alignment? Is that this clarity method that you talk about?
That's the 3 parts. So that's why I'm sharing, like, why it is integral to be in this repetitive experience. This is a skill that we hone.
So mindset, clarity, and action. So mindset's number 1. Tell me, how do like, is it just having a positive attitude? What's mindset all about?
No, there's actually, in the course, there's actually questions and prompts and journal activities that can happen. And that's the critical piece of actually it's meant to start to illuminate through that curiosity who you are. So you're in that discovery and you're like, who am I? What is it that I am here to do? What can I offer? And the biggest, most important thing that parents can do, when we go back to why I said we even have this issue in the first place, is if you're that parent that encourages and supports your child's curiosity, I think that's what increases the odds of them making it in life. And then when it comes to slowing things down, we need to create that safety around being curious and trying things and experimenting and getting after things and having, allowing for the potential failure. Go and experiment, go try something, go take a summer job, or go ask somebody in a field, like, let's use a veterinary doctor, for example. If your child's curious about a certain occupation, try to create an experience for them to go and see what a day in the life is like. Create those types of things and tell them that their only job as a teenager is to get to know themselves. Be in that curious conversation. So that's how we nurture and cultivate and support our kids to feel more resilient, more confident, like develop them so that they can move forward and do something in the world.
So it's a mindset. It's a mindset. it's a mindset of more curiosity, of more being open to experience. Is
Exploration.
that it?
It's like you're investigating and you're exploring.
And that if you change your mind, it's not a failure, it's part of your
Right.
journey.
And you're a teenager. I'm taking from Dr. Brene Brown in that interview. She literally tells her daughter, "You don't know who you are. You can't possibly know who you could become in this world when you're a teenager. You're just getting started." And I think anybody who's, had any years of experience in this would agree. Yes, you do not know when you're a teenager what your potential is.
Yeah.
You don't know what that outlook looks like. And so then the other thing is get them to know that that's their only job, to get to know themselves. But then that's when the really heavy lifting starts. That's when the real hard work starts. And that is encourage them to believe in themselves, encourage them to keep going, encourage them to keep being curious. Because a lot of times we just want the quick fix. We just want, okay, one and done, it's done. I mean, my kids do it to me all the time. I always encourage them to do clarity mapping. A huge component of clarity mapping is time management. And we have this tracker inside of clarity mapping. So time management is a major skill that we teach. And they don't want to. I mean, when I sit down and I make them write out their schedule for the coming week, they just take it for granted that I'm doing this. But I'm like, you need to have eyes on what the next 7 days look like. You have to have your head wrapped around what your obligations, responsibilities are, what your commitments are, what's the homework, what's the assignments, what's the commitments with your, sports teams and your friends. You get to have a social life. You get to have fun. I'm all for all of that. But how do we balance it? It's a skill. We need to be teaching them to hone this skill. And that's what we do inside of clarity mapping. We work on mindset, we work on clarity, we get into action.
Okay,
and that
tell us about action then.
The action is all about the tracker. It's all about your time. A lot of kids really, it's a very sobering moment when they have to track their time. There's an activity in the program about just recognizing how much time they lose on their phones.
Yeah, no question.
I sit in sessions sometimes when it's private sessions, and it's anger inducing. They can get very frustrated. What? I'm like, this whole thing boils down to how you choose to spend your time. If you want to handle the pressure, if you want to transform that pressure into performance, you want to find yourself finding your way to a great life, you are going to know how you're spending your time. And initially, you might not like what's happening on that front.
Well, I think all of us have that problem, frankly, time management.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the things that's really empowering young people is when they get their mind around, okay, I'm in charge. They have their bearings, they have their confidence, they have that outlook on the future where it's like, okay, I've got the week ahead of me. It's not the next 5 years. It's not the next whole school year. And it's not even that semester that they're in. It is, let's take a look at how I run my day and let's take a look at what's coming up in the week. And, tools and strategies and honing that skill set of mastering that. And unbelievable, amazing things start to happen because everybody only has the 24 hours in the day, right? We all only have. This sounds
like a fantastic program. Remind us of the website, please.
Thank you. ShineOnMethod.com.
ShineOnMethod.com. We're going to take a final break and come back in with some concluding comments with Lucy Colangelo in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I've been chatting tonight with Lucy Colangelo. She is a communications expert that has developed a program for teenagers and their parents and their teachers called the ShineOn Method. It's available at the ShineOnMethod.com. And it's been interesting chatting with Lucy because she says that the need for this has increased today for a couple of reasons. Number one, we need more connection and communication with our children. Number two, that we need to balance experience versus education. Number three, the world is changing and it's changing faster than it ever changed before. And then this program has sort of three parts to it. Number one is mindset. And that on mindset, Lucy, I think what you said is that being curious and changing and failing is not failure because you're learning as you go through that whole process. And number two, clarity. And you've got this clarity mapping part of your program that really sounds like I could use it, and lots of us could use it. It's a way to improve your thinking about what's important in life and who you are. And then the third thing is putting it into action. And I guess you do this primarily through a schedule and stuff. And so, it sounds really, really helpful and important. Let me ask you, Lucy, do you think that it's more difficult today because of COVID-19? There's a whole bunch of people that went through high school that didn't have that interaction in school that people had, and even today we're sort of having the hangover effects of COVID-19. So how do you think the last couple of years have impacted everything that you've been talking about?
Oh my goodness. It's been a huge impact. My oldest went through it. He is almost done high school. And so those are critical years. And those years lost to, like, how hard I've been emphasizing experiences. Well, we were locked down. Who was going we weren't having any experiences. Where were we going to go? All of that stuff. It really slowed that progression down, the social development, all kinds of things. Absolutely, there's been an impact. We're still feeling it. I'm feeling it. I know that I am pushing and encouraging more than I ever thought I'd have to about getting out there and having experiences and doing the thing, sign up for the thing. It's so critical. I saw my son just come to life when last year they got to have the ski club and go and experience skiing. It's just a wonderful pastime sport kind of experience, but he wasn't getting out there for anything. And he was acknowledging, oh my gosh, this is the first time I'm with the kids on a bus going somewhere, not just back and forth to school, and having a social experience where anything can happen. And it's kind of unbounded in a way, what's going to come up in those experiences. And we hadn't had that. So our lives were closed off, and that's a real hit to the development of young people, how they see their world, what's going on. They don't know much about the world, and we need to really understand that that's a huge impact. Not much was going on, and it wasn't opening their world at all. We were closed off. I read this
fascinating book. I think it was called something like "The 20s Are the Most Important Decade of Your Life." And it was really interesting. And its argument was that the 20s used to be that time where people did, get educated, find their spouse, get married, maybe buy a house, start a career. And that today, a lot of people are delaying that until their 30s, if not, frankly, their mid 30s. And that, the argument was that teenagehood is being extended. Used to sort of teenage years ended at 18, and now they're going on to 30, and that's not positive, that people are delaying making decisions about who they are. So is that putting more pressure, or is it an indication that we've put too little pressure and people have extended adolescence by another 10 years?
I think the extension of adolescence is lines up with the inflation of education. That's a term I learned from Dr. Ken Robinson. He's an education expert. He has one of the most popular TED Talks ever. If you want to go look that one up, amazing, talks about the education system. And he's talking about how, wow, the message to young people is you're not ready to contribute to the world until you have a PhD. And by then you're 27, so that's what the real impact is you don't feel like you can engage in and contribute because you're not good enough yet, because you don't have enough schooling. And that's why I'm saying okay, there's got to be that balance with experience. And so we've got to come back to a place where, yes, you're pursuing your education, but also be experiencing things and be out there. I think that school's going to change. I think young people are going to want to be engaging with the world. I mean, that's just the nature of human beings, right? And so I think we're going to get to a place where they're not going to be pursuing the highest levels of academia to feel like they made it in the world. They're going to want to engage and do things and check that box in that regard. I think that's where I think it's going. I think I don't think it's natural to feel like, oh, I need to be 30 years old before I can contribute meaningfully and before I can, be a grown-up and an adult. I mean, you hear all these things about adulting, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're in your 20s and 30s and you still don't feel like you grew up. I mean, maybe sometimes I don't feel like I grew up, but I'm well past that decade also. So, I mean, it stays with you maybe in a fun kind of way, but really the hard truth of it is, if we want our young people knowing themselves, knowing the world, and engaging with it. That's how things are going to get better. We need them at their best, and we want them to believe in themselves. And no, you don't have to be a PhD in 30 before you can start to do that. Start to affect things.
So Lucy, if you had to do that valedictory address again, what would you say?
No, don't. I'd need more time. But I want to invite I want to invite everybody into this conversation with themselves to get to know themselves. There's some good stuff locked up in there, and we need to find it. We need to unlock it, and we need to unleash it on the world, is what I want to see happening with people. No more sidelines. No more, I'm not good enough. No, let's get into action. Let's play with it. Let's see where it takes us. And let's shine on, is what I say. So I'd invite everybody to come to ShineOnMethod.com. I'd invite them to check out the clarity mapping course that I have there. That's what gets things going. And see what you can do. See where it takes you. What comes up when you start getting curious about who you are? What comes up when you start taking charge of your day and your time and how you want to spend it? And let's see what happens. Let's stir things up.
Remind us the website.
ShineOnMethod.com.
ShineOnMethod.com. Lucy Colangelo, thanks so much for joining us and inspiring us to get a little bit more involved in and aware of, connected with our kids, and allow them to be curious and experience life and figure out who they are, who they really are, not who we try to tell them they are, and they've got to define themselves on their own. Thanks so much. That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videocasts are available on my website, briancrombie.com. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, Brian.